Hi everyone. Let us continue to the next topic on the digestive system. All living organisms acquire energy from the environment. Some organisms, like the autotrophs, have the ability to process their own food through the process of chemosynthesis or photosynthesis. Unlike the autotrophs, we have the heterotrophs. Heterotrophs don't have this kind of ability. Heterotrophs cannot make their own food. So, in a certain adaptation to acquire its energy, heterotrophs got its energy from other living organisms. And to extract the energy, it needs a certain adaptation. And this adaptation is called the digestive system. If I see that as 2, that is for the incisor. Then, for the canine represented by C, since both up and lower portion have only 1. So, 2 over the lower part, we have 1, 2, and 3. So, 3. So, the dental formula of the of this, I think the dog, is 3 over 2, 1 over 1, 4 over 4, and 2 over 3. So that's the dental formula of the dog. Okay, next. So this is how showing the set, half of the set. So this is only half of the set. The upper upper teeth, and this is the lower half set of the lower teeth. So incisor, example of this animal is an insectivore. So 3 incisor, 1 canine, premolars niya we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Ito, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then molar is 1, 2, 3. Sa lower teeth, we have 1, 2, 3 incisor, 1 canine, premolar is 1, 2, 3, 4. Then this is molar 1, 2, 3. So 3 over 3, 4 over 4, 1 over 1, 3 over 3. So that's that. So incisor is 3 over 3, 1 over 1. Premolar is 4 over 4, and molar is 3 over 3. Hope you got it. Okay, next. In terms of mammalian molars, we have different design. We have the tribospenic molar, bunodont molars, lophodont molars, selenodont, and molarization is more on humans. So we have hypsodont. Okay. So this is a tribospenic. On the surface, you have 3, metacone, paracone, and procone. Sa bunodont naman, you have there the metacone, paracone. On the upper portion, we have the protocone and the hypcone. On the lower parts of mandible, molars niya is have 4 pointed areas. We have the hypoconid, protoconid, and metaconid, and entoconid. So this is rhinoceros molar. This is the molar of the deer. This is for the humans, which has a crown. And we have also the plates. Toothless vertebrates are found in every class of vertebrate, including agnathan, sturgeon, some toads, turtles, birds, and even balleens. So balleens have their plates for filter. So they do the ano type of feeding. Pwede din siya sa suspension. Ah, Okay, fish. So, tooth vertebrates. Fish have teeth and numerous and widely distributed on the oral cavity and pharynx. Early tetrapods was distributed sa palate area like the amphibians sa ilahang nasa livomer teeth. It was already attached to the skull. So if you have a frog skull, you will see there a serrated portion on the margin of the skull. That is the vomer teeth. Crocodilians, toothbirds, mammals, teeth are limited to the jaw. Most of the birds right now are more on swallowing and the tearing. They have a curved beak. Sa mga predators like hawks and eagles, they have a curved beak. Murag ang teeth on birds have already reduced because it was not totally used. Fishes, this is how their serrated teeth was arranged on the roof of the mouth, and this is the floor of the mouth. So if you want to see that one, you can have tilapia as a great example of a bony fish. English term ng tilapia, St. Peter's fish or Nile fish. Okay. Still we're on the teeth. So in some reptiles, the teeth was already reduced, like what we have sa mga snakes, mga serpentes. Since they do not do more on chewing, they're more on swallowing. So the teeth were reduced in number. Like what in venomous snakes, they have the fang. The fang was not ideal for cutting, but it was ideal for injecting venom. Sa mga constrictors, they don't have fang, but they have a serrated jaw. They have a serrated teeth pointed inwards, towards the body, inwards. That is ideal to grasp or to hold their prey. So, when you are beaten by a python, you don't have to pull immediately because that will tear your muscles or your skin. Morphological variation in teeth. Vertebrates other than animals, all teeth are shaped like homodont dentition. So, like what we have sa mga sharks, dolphins, they have a homodont dentition. Mammals, other mammals like inlands, teeth exhibit morphological variation. Incisor, canines, premolars, and molars, more on the heterodont. So, it depends. And each teeth sa mga heterodonts perform certain function. So, dito, we will see that homodonts usually seldom grind their food, but they're more on swallowing, either cut, then swallow. While in heterodont animals, they don't directly swallow the food, but it cuts the food, they chew the food, and grinds the food. So, it changes first the physical aspect of food before they swallow. So, this is the design for heterodont. And on the upper drawing, usually, this is the mammalian set. On the upper part, that is more on the homodont type, in which all tooth design are similar. So let's proceed sa tongue. Tongue is another accessory found in the mouth aside sa teeth. which also helps in mastication. In humans, tongue muscles originate from the somites. Masticatory muscles, or we call the originate from somatomeres. So this muscle develop late and not complete even at birth. So the tongue muscle will help us, and it is also equipped with different salivary glands. So the tongue will also, in humans, will serve as the one of the taste have a sensory area called the taste. So meron siyang mga senses found inside the tongue which you could detect the sweetness, the saltiness, the bitterness of the food. Now, in terms of development of the tongue, it develops from the pharyngeal arch 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So it derived from the pharyngeal arc during the embryonic development. Like what we have here, the 1 will develop further into the oral cavity, oral part of the tongue. Then arc 2, that is the initial distribution of the surface, is lost. So maging oral part, maging oral cavity. Then arc 3 will develop into palatine tonsil, shown in yellow area. Then the green will transform into epiglottis and part of larynx. So that is the fate of pharyngeal arc during the embryonic development. In jewelfishes, or called it the nastosomes, tongue, in some primitive amphibians, the tongue is simply crescent in shape. So crescent in shape, but they don't. In amphibians, it is also muscular, made of muscular muscles that is ideal to catch the prey. But in fishes, tongue is formed a tiny fold only. So amphibians, especially the anurans, the anuran group, the tongue is very essential. But in some groups like Apoda and Urodela, they don't have this kind of tongue as we have found in the anurans. Reptiles and mammals, primary tongue, glandular, and we also have their lingual swellings. So some lizards, like the iguana, have homoplasy appearance of their tongue with the anurans, because they have to stretch their tongue like what we have the frog, but is highly muscularized in lizards. While in Serpentes group, the snake's tongue is used to sense the smell by flickering its forked tongue out of the mouth. So it was not used for prey capture, but it was used for sensory purposes. It used to smelling. So when the tongue is pulled back into the mouth, the fork tips are placed into the Jacobson's organ. It is located in front of the roof of the mouth. Then the snake detects the odor by analyzing the particles with the nervous system. So this is how they smell. They flicker out their tongue and report it to the Jacobson's organ. In birds naman, lateral lingual swellings are suppressed and intrinsic muscle are usually lacking. So because since they swallow, more on swallowing, unlike sa mga nectarine or mga nectar-eating birds like sunbirds, hummingbirds, What else? Flower pecker birds, their tongue is very essential. So they have a very long tongue used to lick the nectar of the flower. But in pelicans, gulls, I think their tongues are quite reduced. So woodpeckers have shorter tongue. So the horn of the hyoid arc. So this is the hyoid, trachea. While the salamander have a muscular tongue that could help capture the prey. Anteaters, another type of mammal that is uses the tongue also to track down ants' nest or termites' nest. Tongue mobility. Turtles, crocodilians, and some birds and whales, tongue is largely immobilized in the floor of the oral cavity and cannot be extended. So, because it was not used, they are more on swallowing, so the tongues were not extended. Snakes and insectivores, lizards, and some amphibians like anurans and some birds, tongue sometimes long or maybe move in and out of the oral cavity. Like what I said, some birds have used their tongue to get some nectar, like what we have the hummingbirds, sunbirds, and flower pecker birds. So, tongue is very essential to them and more well developed compared sa mga insectivores na birds. They don't use the tongue, so they have a short immobilized tongue. Snakes, they mobilize their tongue used for smelling. Insectivore lizards like chameleon, what else? House lizards use this kind of tongue, like what we have sa anurans. They have to propel their tongue out just to capture the prey. Mammal's tongue is attached to the floor of the oral cavity, can be extended out to the oral cavity. So may greater highly muscularized because it performs specific task. So function of vertebrate tongues: capturing, taste, manipulate fluids and solids in the oral cavity, swallowing, thermoregulation, grooming, and speech for humans. Grooming, like sa cats, sa mga dogs, they use their tongue for grooming. Oral glands are secrete a variety of substances including saliva and saliva could be used for lubrication and binding, solubilized dry food, and also oral hygiene. Because if you have saliva, it would also prevent further accumulation of bacteria because through salivation, it will wash out the bacteria going to your stomach. It also initiates starch digestion because beneath the root of the tongue, you have there the gland that secretes a certain enzyme called alpha amylase. But it is not true to all mammals. It only like humans have this kind of ability. Provides alkaline buffering and fluid. So this is of great importance to ruminants. Ruminants naman, which have a non-secretory for stomachs. Evaporative cooling. So this is more on dogs. They use they have to let undergo panting just to release sweat since their they develop poor developed sweat glands. So that is one way to release their heat from the body. poison. So more on some lizard snakes and vampire bats have anticoagulant. Salivary glands, based on anatomy, if we have a cat, you can dissect the salivary glands located near the lower ear. We have the parotid gland. Beneath the parotid gland, more on the lower portion and parts of lower mandible, we have there the mandibular gland, and anterior to that we have the sublingual gland, and on the upper mandible you have the zygomatic gland connected to the parotid gland. Okay, pharynx. This is a pharynx, the area. The part of the digestive tract exhibiting pharyngeal pouches, at least in the embryo, that may give rise to slits. Fish pharynx is the respiratory organ. In tetrapods, pharynx, the part of the foregut preceding to the esophagus lining. So you have there the glottis, opening of the auditory. So you have the eustachian tube and the opening going to the esophagus. So this is the mammal epiglottis. So this will the epiglottis. So this is the epiglottis, the hyoid bone. So an epiglottis is positioned over the glottis so that when the mammal swallow, it covers the larynx. The larynx drawn forward against the epiglottis, and the epiglottis blocks the glottis. So the glottis will the food will not go into the glottis. So it prevents the food or liquid entering the tracheal or the area respiratory tract. Esophagus. Esophagus is the epithelium is composed of stratified squamous cells. So it is also highly muscular, and it would depend, the length of the esophagus would depend on the length on certain type of animal. In birds, the esophagus have a specialized compartment called the crap. Later on, you will see the crap of the bird. In some vertebrates, esophagus will serve as the passageway of food towards the stomach, like in humans. So this is the esophagus part, a portion of the esophagus of the bird, the crap. And you like to eat that one. While in fishes, the esophagus is very short. Sometimes it merges with the stomach. In amphibians, it's also short, ciliated, and supplied with mucous gland. In reptiles, it's quite longer depending on the type of reptile. Birds, the esophagus is long and has a cornified lining. So you have the esophagus, and at the end part you have the crop, a specialized type of esophagus. Digestive system of the bird is a little different than the mammals because the birds have enlargement of the esophagus. So money, temporary storage called the crop. So main function of the crop initially moistens the food and serve as storage also. Birds regurgitate food from the crop to feed by the chicks. So they will vomit, regurgitate, because the food was already moistened, and that is easily for the chicks to swallow. Mammals, the esophagus is long, devoid of cilia. Some cornified rugae enter that more on happen sa mga rodents. So this is the stomach of the ruminant. So ES for esophagus. So this is esophagus. RU, this is the rumen. RE, the reticulum. Where's the reticulum? This is the reticulum. OM, omasum. Omasum. AB, abomasum. So this is the abomasum. And IN stands for the intestine. So how many chambers in ruminants? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 chambers. We have the esophagus is not a part of the stomach. 4 chamber stomach. Rumen, omasum, reticulum, and abomasum. So let's have the stomach. Okay. We have to enlarge the text. Okay, the stomach is the primary storage of food in most animals. So this is the area where protein is initially broken down, but no digestion of carbohydrates. In stomach, it contains already the acids. So the primary storage of food, highly musculature, cyclostomes have weak developed similar to esophagus. Fishes, amphibians, and reptiles have increasing specialization, so more differentiated and highly muscular. From birds have divided into chambers also. We have the proventriculus and ventriculus. So proventriculus is more glandular, while the ventriculus more on muscular. So this is the gizzard. Ang ventriculus. So if you're going to dissect the chicken stomach, you have here the proventriculus, the ventriculus called the gizzard. That is ideal for grinding. So another group, like the ruminants who have 4-chambered stomach, we have the deer, mga cow, and rumen. So this is the rumen, highly muscular, where the enzyme cellulase is found. Then we have the reticulum, a smaller portion, site for fermentation process, or the area of collected regurgitation, or the cud. Omasum, found in the middle, temporary holding chamber. And the abomasum is the true glandular stomach of ruminants. In humans, we have a C-shaped type, which is also similar to cats, dogs. So we have a similar design of a certain, actually it's not 100%, but likely similar design with some animals like cats and dogs. So that's the design, C-shape. And we have 3 major regions. The fundic region. The fundic region is located at the end of the esophagus, wider in area. We have the cardiac, the middle portion, the stomach, and the pyloric region near to the pyloric sphincter, or this is the area near to the duodenum of the intestine. So the muscles of the stomach consist of at least 3 layers of muscle. Intestine. Okay. Intestine is located between the stomach and the cloaca or anus. But in humans, intestine, based on the arrangement, intestine is located below the stomach. So, below the stomach. It depends on the position of the vertebrate. Kung bipedal animal, so the stomach is above the intestine. So that's the arrangement. So intestine also is the final digestion of all food components. It contains different enzymes for fats, proteins, carbohydrates. Fishes, relatively straight, simple, depende sa size. But in cartilaginous fishes like sharks have already a spiral valve. So, mga condyctes, cartilaginous fishes have spiral valve type of stomach. Now, if you're going to compare from the cyclostome going to human, you will see how the arrangement of stomach and the intestine. Now, in cyclostome, you have a straight digestive system in which no stomach because there are substrate feeders, and substrates are already simplified components which can be easily digested. So, no grinding is required. So, stomach is no longer used for cyclostome. So, we have only the esophagus and the intestine. While in gar, sharks, since the food was become complex, stomach have already evolved. So, gar have a straight stomach, shortened esophagus, and the intestine is quite simply not totally coiled, but we have already the cloaca and the intestine, which is simply straight. Now, in sharks, the stomach area was increased but shortened ang esophagus. The intestines have already have certain compartments in shark directly to the cloaca. The necturus have already developed an esophagus, stomach, coiled intestines. Same thing with the turtle. The turtle stomach is elongated, forming a C shape. Then sa chicken, slightly coiled also. To the pig and to the humans. But the intestines of humans have two major divisions. You have the small intestine and the large intestine. The small intestine ideal for digestion, and the large intestine ideal for more on storage of waste. So this is the intestine of humans. So highly coiled. The reason for coiling, since we ate already complex food, so the coiling also aids in further digestion process. Unlike sa straight, digestion process is very short. But as the coiling increases and become complex, it will give more time and to give more time to digest the food further. So some gastrointestinal tract of various animals, we have opossum. This is more on focusing on the ileum. Apart, yung appendix, you see the ileum, that is more part of the large intestine. Why is it the humans is quietly very small? I think this, in terms of use, if you're going to recall Lamarck's evolution, that if the structure is less used, it becomes reduced. If the structure is highly used by the animal, then it will become more developed since more functional siya. So, magde-develop siya further. So, we have the last portion, the accessory of the digestive organ. We have the liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. These are the accessory organs for digestive process. Why? Because liver detoxify, emulsify, and releases also mga salts to emulsify fat, and it is connected to the intestine. Gallbladder and pancreas releases enzymes to break down not only carbohydrates but also fats and proteins. So this is the liver. Gallbladder is located on the larger portion of the liver, below, inferior to the liver. Then stomach, this is the bile duct where the fluids or components of the gallbladder coming from the liver will pass through to the small intestine. See pancreas, a portion of the pancreas was attached to the C curve of the stomach and to the duodenal part of the intestine. And we have there a smaller ampullae or opening where the enzymes and some components will enter to the intestine, a small opening. So fishes, they have already the intestine. This is the intestine. This is the liver of the fish, short esophagus, then the stomach, pancreas. Pancreas secretes pancreatic juice. It is a bicarbonate solution to neutralize acid. Since some food, stomach releases hydrochloric acids. So, para hindi ma-dissolve ng acid ang intestine, it releases bicarbonate solution sa duodenal part. So, you have here a small ampullae of the intestine where the products of pancreas is released. So, that's all more on the digestive system. So, thank you for listening.